storage and test facility. Let's see what we're rolling out for this video. Well, looks like we got ourselves the all-new redesigned Toyota 86. Although to me it looks an awful lot like the older model, but oh well. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, I suppose. It does look pretty nice, especially with this bright red paint. The main difference between the older models and this newer one is under the hood. Instead of the 2-liter, putting out 205 horsepower, which was a reliable engine, but just didn't have many guts. This is a new 2.4-liter, at least for the 86. Actually, it's the same 2.4-liter used in the Subaru Outback. Putting out 228 horsepower, a far broader torque curve, rate 31 to 21 mpg, 31 highway, 21 city. It's available with a 6-speed manual transmission, which is standard, or 6-speed automatic like we have here. Contrary to what you read on the internet, the flat 4 Subaru engines are very reliable if maintained, as this one will be. And if you want to shift yourself, you get paddle shifters on the steering wheel where they belong, not on the steering column like some Europeans do where they do not belong. You control for sport, normal, snow, track mode, traction control. And my favorite feature, instead of a junk electronic parking brake like we're getting on most vehicles, you get a manual one. Yeah, it takes up a bit of room, but still a better choice than electric. This is a 3-part video. Part 1, we're going over the spec sheet. Number 2, we're going to do some driving. And number 3, we're going to take this out in the dark, see how these headlights work, and do some night driving. So don't go away. And the first thing we always do when we get a vehicle is check to see if there's a spare tire, which seems to be a rare commodity nowadays. Of course, this being a compact, there's no room for a spare tire to speak of. Well, maybe. But we didn't get one, just a cheesy tire repair kit. Yeah, I guess you could put a spare tire down in there if you bought one separately. The car makers say they do this to save weight, being a performance car, but we all know they do it to save money. I get it. No big deal. If you want a spare tire, buy your own. As for myself, I'm bringing my own tire repair kit with all the goodies in case I get a real nasty flat. As with the inflation we're having, there's been a price increase on this vehicle. It used to be down the 27 grand area. The new ones are starting just under 29 grand, but this is the GR86 Premium, loaded with all the goodies that you might or might not want. Well, there's the tab for you. But hey, it's made in Japan. That's worth a few bucks right there. If you want to see how this new Toyota 86 compares to the 4-cylinder Toyota Supra, we did a video on that. If you want to see how it compares, just go to the end of the video, click and watch. We'll have the link for that. Let's take a look at the cabin since we're sitting in it. Nice large glove box. Climate controls about as easy as they can be. 3 simple knobs and a few buttons. The info screen's not very big, but neither is the car, so what do you expect? A nice gauge cluster. And for the record, this has been in the fleet for 900 miles before I got it. Driven by various people. Averaging 25.7 mpg, which is pretty much what was claimed on the price sheet. We'll take this out on the highway, see if we can reach the 30 mpg mark. I've done it before. In fact, with some of these, I've gotten as much as 35 mpg, so you never know. You do get a set of rear seats, mainly for insurance purposes. 2-seaters are more expensive to insure than a 4-seater, but they're just for show, unless you know people who don't have any legs. Good for the family pet or groceries, I suppose. Or if you have relatives you don't like, you want to get rid of them, just take them on a nice 8-hour Sunday drive, stick them back here. They'll go back home in a hurry. Part 1 of the video is over. Second part, we're going to go out and do some driving. The power steering on this vehicle is slightly rubbery, but it's quick and responsive, which is what we want, so I'm not complaining. Even though this new motor only has 23 extra horsepower, it makes a big difference in acceleration. Sounds great too at high RPM. Nice brakes. As we're doing all our videos, we're going to take some mild speed humps at 15 miles per hour. See how the suspension performs on impact. Here comes the first one. Reasonably smooth. Bit of rear wheel hop. Number 2. 3. And the nasty one. The big one. And that clunking you hear isn't the car, it's my toolbox in the trunk. Overall, the ride comfort on impact's pretty decent. Even though the suspension does a pretty good job of running over speed bumps and potholes, there's still a lot of noise coming down from under there, especially on rough pavement. This is not a quiet car, especially when you get at freeway speeds. You really have to turn the radio volume up. Not the best for long trips, but a small car like this can't carry much luggage, so how far are you going anyway? We're going to take a freeway trip, see what type of fuel economy we can get. I'm hoping for mid-30s. I've done it before in these, but they claim 31. We'll find out soon enough. Even though I said this before, I'm going to say it again. Even though the suspension does a great job of absorbing impacts on potholes and speed bumps, it does not do a great job of absorbing sound. These tires are like amplifiers. I'm hearing everything that's going on the road. If I run over a pebble, it sounds like a bowling ball. If I run over a crack, it sounds like I'm running over a moon crater. All this sound comes right up into the cabin. This is a very, very noisy car. If you want to listen to the stereo, you have to turn it very, very loud to hear it. But it's a sports car, and it's light, around 2,800 pounds, so it's one of those things you have to live with. Alright, that's the end of our highway trip. I'm going to pull over and see what the fuel economy numbers are. And I must say, basically this is a comfortable car. Smooth ride, low wind noise, as you would expect from a aerodynamic design, but the rumbling and thumping noises from these tires, all the racket comes right up into the cabin, and after an hour of that, I'm supposed to take a highway trip tomorrow, around 350 to 400 miles, and I think I'm going to wait until I get my Lexus next week. This is not made for long highway trips. But again, it's a sports car, so why complain? And I was hoping for something better than the 31 claimed, but we got 31 claimed, and that's good enough. Alright, enough about fuel economy. Let's take this out on some curved roads to see how this performs. I want to make sure nobody's in the jail tonight. I don't want to be there. This is the Wild West. It's the only jail they can afford. Yeah, even though this vehicle is a bit noisy on the freeway, you don't really care when you get on backcountry roads. That's when you want to hear the noise. From the loud exhaust and the screeching tires, right? This thing handles pretty good, so I don't think you'll be hearing many screeching tires on this one. If you're driving a Toyota 86 on a curved road like this, and you want maximum performance, you have two choices. If you're going to use the automatic transmission, the automatic setting, put it in the sport mode. It'll keep the RPMs up, make the shifting a lot quicker, as I'm doing right now. It's a pretty good system. Always seems to pick the right gear. The other choice is to put the gearbox in the manual mode and use the paddle shifters. And this is why the paddle shifters belong on the steering wheel, because regardless of whether I'm going a straight line, a mild corner, or tight corner, the paddles are always within reach, right at my fingertips. You always know where they're at. To where if they're on the steering column, like a few manufacturers do, yeah, you know where they're at too, where you can't reach them in corners. Bad setup. Paddles belong on the steering wheel. And don't send me any emails telling me you don't shift in corners. That only applies to racetracks. On the street, yes, you do. This new 2.4 liter engine is far, far superior to the older 2.0. No doubt about that. A Lots and lots of flexible torque throughout the RPM range, and a lot quicker. Sounds better too. Much better. So what's my take on the new GR86 after a week of driving? Well, number one, it's definitely better than the previous model. Lots of improvements. In fact, number two, I would say it's almost as good as the four-cylinder Toyota Supra that costs about 10 grand more. Compared to the European sports cars, this is a great value. And compared to the European sports cars, it's not going to fall apart when the warranty goes out. A very, very good buy. Alright, it's dark enough, and these lights look pretty bright to me. These are the low beams at the moment. And here we have the high beams, a bit brighter, but interesting. There are two bulbs in each case. In low beam or high beam, only the one on the right is illuminated, the one on the left is not, so I wonder what it does. We'll have to look into that later. And here's what the taillights look like. The emergency flashers. Ah, that's what the left bulb does. Alright. Now we know. And put the vehicle in reverse. Here's what you see on the rearview camera screen. Doesn't look too good on my handheld camera. It looks a lot better in person, trust me. My camera wasn't made for dark use, apparently, at least not on this particular screen. And going through the rest of the vehicle, there aren't too many controls in here, so not too much to light up. Here's a problem I have with the GR86, and I'm really not picking on Toyota here. It's applying to almost all car manufacturers. And that is, when you turn off all these silly safety nannies that I do not want, you get an indicator light. Okay, that's fine, but they're orange, the same color as the check engine light. So now if I'm ignoring the orange lights, the safety nanny indicators, that means I want to ignore the check engine light when it comes on. Why can't these be a different color? Why do they have to be orange? Why can't they be purple or lavender or something else? Not a good idea. Orange and red means you have something serious going on, and turning these off is not a serious situation. By the way, when I say the color orange, some of these come in yellow, which is also a hazard light color. Red, orange, and yellow, actually. And these might look yellow on your screen, but they're orange in person. And here we have the low beams on a wall 100 feet away, approximately 33 yards. Give or take. Go to low beam, go to high beam. Definitely strong in the middle on high beam. Low beam's a little bit on the low side, but this is a low car, so we would expect that. Certainly bright. Here we have the high beams, only fence line 80 yards away, building 130 yards away. Doing a lot of construction here, so don't get a good spread like we used to. Go to low beam. Reaches out. I just noticed these are active headlights. That means the lenses turn the same direction as the steering wheel does. We've been taking corners, turn the steering wheel to the left. The lenses go to the left or right, as you can see. Comes in handy when taking corners. This is ordinarily a feature you only find on very expensive cars. In fact, I had a Mercedes recently, over 100 grand. Didn't have this feature. To find it on a vehicle in this price class is rather unusual. This is the deluxe model of the 86. I don't know if these active headlights are standard throughout the line on the cheaper versions. You'd have to check with the dealer about that. Okay, let's take this out in the country. See how these headlights work when taking corners, since we have the active headlights. Here we have the high beams on. Does pretty good at lighting up those signs way down the road, about a half mile. Go low beam. Almost see them. And here's another spot where you can tell the difference between the low beam and high beam. A lot of crazy wildlife out here you don't want to hit, so better to keep the high beams on when possible. And here we see how nice the active headlights are when taking corners. Lets you see what's around the bend a lot quicker than you normally would be. It's a bit cold outside tonight, around 47 degrees, so we won't have to worry about rattlesnakes if we step outside. Vampire bats, that's another story. I put my tool chest on the passenger seat, so now the car is going bonkers, wanting the tool chest to fasten its safety belt. Seriously, I have to listen to this the whole trip. Good grief. Alright, the toolbox has the safety belt around it. I'm sure it feels much safer now. This concludes our night headlight test. Time to go back into town because the vampire bats are once again cycling overhead.